our third roundtable, which is on cybersecurity in everyday life, citizens, families, and organizations. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants in the roundtable for accepting our invitation and for being here and taking their time to share with us some insights about this very relevant topic. And so for today, we have Professor Cristina Ponte. And I'm going to present them very briefly, and then I'll give the floor to them because I think it's most important for them to actually speak about what brought them here today. Cristina Ponte is a full professor at Universidade Nova, and she's a member of the management team of the European network EU Kids Online, and she coordinates the Portuguese team. Among her main interests are media and family generations, with a focus on children and media, from representations to children's practices, and she has published extensively on children and media and on training students as young researchers. Recently, she coordinated the first Portuguese representative study on screens in the life of young children growing up amongst screens, funded by the Portuguese Authority for Communication, and among her most recent publications is the co-edited book Digital Parenting: The Challenges for Families in the Digital Age, published by Nordicom, and she co-authored the chapter Parental Practices in the Era of Smartphones in Smartphone Cultures, edited by Jane Vincent and Leslie Haddon. We also have today Pedro Xavier Mendonça. He's a consultant at the Portuguese National Cybersecurity Centre, as well as a researcher and professor. His work examines the role of human behavior in cybersecurity. At the center, he is the coordinator of the Cybersecurity Observatory and collaborates in the awareness and training program, which is something I think he's going to speak about. Sofia Aureliano. Sofia has over 15 years of experience in communication as journalist, television producer, product manager, and public relations consultant. She also lectures in the field of public relations, ideation, and entrepreneurship at EST and ISCS, where she coordinates the program in communication and political marketing, persuasion, political influence, and the acts in the political sphere, areas of interest and research, as well as using storytelling in political communication. She's an assistant of political communication at the PSD parliamentary group since 2011. Yes. Then Paulo Teixeira, he's a Lisbon-based sociologist with a master in planning and evaluation of development processes. He is now a PhD student in communication studies here at Católica, where he also teaches at the social work programs, doing research on the use of photography and visual storytelling in communication for social change. Paulo is the owner of Logframe, a consultancy firm working in planning and evaluation of social policies, programs, and projects, both in Portugal and internationally. He was a member of the board of European Evaluation Society, and he is a member of the American Evaluation Association. In the RAN, Radicalization Awareness Network, Paulo is a member of the Communication and Narratives Working Group and of the Evaluation Expert in the Center for Excellence. In 2016, Paulo launched Humane Focus, a humanitarian photography project. Paulo is also the co-author of 3 books on planning and evaluation. And finally, but not least, Vítor Ventura, who is probably actually the biggest expert here in cybersecurity. Vítor Ventura is a Cisco Talos security researcher. As a researcher, he investigated and published various articles on emerging cybersecurity threats. During these investigations, Vítor determined the geopolitical and socioeconomic context of the threats in order to better determine their impact. He has dedicated a lot of time to privacy in cyberspace, especially on mobile phone-based applications. He has unveiled several flaws in encrypted chat applications that could compromise users' privacy. More recently, he has dedicated his time researching biometric security, both on fingerprint and facial recognition. It's a Freudian slip, because race really plays a major role in this. Vítor has been a speaker in cybersecurity conferences like RECON Brussels, DEF CON, Crypto, and Privacy Village, besides Lisbon, amongst others. Prior to that, he was an IBM X-Force Iris European manager, where he has led response on several high-profile organizations affected by NotPetya event, the biggest cyber attack performed until now, that led to millions of dollars of damage to hundreds of companies across dozens of countries. So as you see, you have a wide set of experiences and focus on different topics around this major issue, which is cybersecurity, because the panel really wanted to address this idea of how this impacts families, citizens, companies, and that's what we are going to try to bring to the floor today. So I'll start with Professor Cristina Ponte. Do you want to speak from here?
Could you show if it's on the left side, the confident, if you, yes, that post, please. Yeah. So, good afternoon. Thank you, Carla, for the invitation. Good afternoon to all, and I'm very glad to be here because I have some recent and fresh results from our research. And yesterday we published this story in the blog Parenting for a Digital Future, which is located at the London School of Economics, and the results regarding the Portuguese families suggest, according to what children said, that they live in confident, communicative and caring families in Portugal. If you want to see more the story has not only this good side, which is the dominant, but also includes some problematic questions. You can search as I said, the name of the blog is Parenting for a Digital Future. Well, when I received Carla's message about the presentation, I prepared just a few notes with a focus on the families and with a focus on the Portuguese context. In 2010, we in the European network UKids Online conduct a huge survey in 25 countries, in which we asked parents and children from 9 to 16 years old. And Portuguese parents were at the top regarding two main concerns. The stranger danger, for them all the new contacts that their children do online were identified as a serious danger, and also inappropriated content. These were the biggest concerns that they presented. Nowadays, when we did recently this new survey in 2018, we just heard children, so we had no opportunity to listen to parents. But we know that the digital ecology is quite different, it's very different from the digital ecology that we had in 2010. For instance, there were no tablets, there were almost no smartphones. We live nowadays in a digital ecology that is dominated by a business model of platforms which imply a constant actualization, and people are invited to provide information about themselves, all kind of data. The platforms are connected between them, so there is, in spite of everything appear much more transparent and the screens that we had in 2010, in reality, the hidden side of the internet is very, very high nowadays. But as Carla, we have here other people that will speak more about this. So I bring here some data about this situation, not only in Portugal, but as Carla said, we also in the UKids Online, we have a kind of policy of publishing accessible information about our own research, such is the example of this post. And we publish in Nordicom, so it's available online, this book about digital parenting. that if you are interested in the topic, you can find several articles, several chapters. They are around 20. And in particular, the chapter written by Veronica Barassi places the question about the child as a datafied citizen nowadays. What is the implications of being born and raised in a digital ecology where all the steps that the child does are collected and worked in this datafication system. There are also two very interesting chapters about sharenting. And sharenting, I suppose you are familiar with this concept. Sharenting is the exhibition from, in this case, parents. Sharenting is a mix between sharing and parenting. It's a mix of putting online text, comments, images about their children without asking them permission. And in this book we have two chapters about parents that resist to place the photos of their children online. But as we know, the impression of the image nowadays of being a good parent is the one that shows to the others how nice, how well cared are their children. So we know that it's difficult to refuse totally, but here you can find some guidelines, some solutions that were identified by parents that want to protect their children in terms of privacy. So to finish, I also collect some data regarding Portugal. We published last week a European report that is also online in the UKids Online website. Report that includes the reports of 19 countries from 19 European countries that follow the same questions. So we can look at each country, in the case Portugal, in comparison with the other countries. So when I took some notes about this from this report regarding questions that have to do with safety and security. In most of the 19 countries, parents are less likely to stimulate their children to learn and to explore new things on the internet, some suggesting ways to use the internet safely. The average that is related with to stimulate their children is 58%, while the average of those parents that promote and suggest ways to use the internet safely are around almost 70%. So we can say that European parents continue to be aware of the internet as a risky place. And Portugal, interestingly, is the second country with lower levels of promoting the second lowest country where parents stimulate their children. So we can think this in relation with the risky culture. So the Portuguese parents are quite protective and don't stimulate so much as other parents, and we can consider to what extent this may be related with a risky avoidance risky culture. Regarding sharenting, so this is one side of the story. The other side of the story is sharenting. Do you imagine where are Portuguese parents in this European panel?
Very sharing.
Very, very sharing. So, in spite of being protected and concerned with stranger danger, the Portuguese parents are the second ones that publish more photos or comments without asking their children if they agree or not. The other point is digital ecology. We had a question about how do they feel, if they feel safe or don't feel safe online. And in this point, it's very interesting that according to children, we don't, in these cases, we have always to stress, these are quantitative results. We don't know if this is true or not. This is what children signed in the survey. But according to children, the Portuguese with the Croatian, with children from Croatia, Norway, and Serbia are are part of those that report feeling of safety, high feeling of safety. So more than 40% say they feel safe online. So these things, I think we think it will be very, very interesting to discuss these results with young people to identify what they consider feeling safe online. This is always, we always identify the need to combine, the need of combining quantitative and qualitative data. Other point that I want to stress, when we look at these overall numbers, we have also to pay attention to the difference between children. Regarding this feeling of feeling safe, much more boys than girls in Portugal say they feel safe online. So we have to consider the issues related with gender. It's not a surprise that older people say more they feel safe than younger people, but regarding gender, why girls express much less than boys that they feel safe. The difference in Portugal is CIS1 is 90% of the difference between girls and boys with the leadership of boys. Gender differences are also visible in other points of the survey in Portugal. Girls are those that report much more bothering situations than boys. So they don't feel, they feel less safe. They report more bothering situations. Girls request more support from peers and from adults they trust, namely parents and teachers. And girls are those that also help more their parents when they have difficulties online. So these results regarding Portugal show that we need to do more research and to listen to children, and gender differences are quite relevant in Portugal. So for the moment, that's all.
Thank you. Sophia, do you want to? So you'll hear from Sophia Aureliano from APDSI, which is the Association for Promotion and Development of the Information Society.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. I actually learned something here. I'm a character. I actually have a son of 9 years old, and I never asked him if he minds that I put. But he asked me a lot if he can put a picture, especially when we wins in Uno or something like that. He wants me to put in Mr. Brand. So it's I think he's okay with that. But I'm actually a shelter. And I have the feeling of the security perception. I have that perception. It's interesting to hear about it. in this in this way, because we think a lot of investigating these things, and then when we are here as a parent, it's completely different. And now I was whoa. I guess okay. I must do something differently more. Okay, but I'm here to talk about APDSI. I don't know if you know. Anyone knows APDSI here? Yeah. It's the Association for the Development and Promotion of Information Society, and we actually exist since 2001. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit. We actually exist since 2001, and we have the same mission, the same vision. In 19 years old, so we want to be recognized for our decisive contribution to the development of an inclusive, participatory, and secure information society, and extensive to all kind of citizens. And that means that we have a mission that regards several stakeholders. I will talk about it in 2 slides. Okay, our mission. We want, I will have to read something here because it's in English, so I will not be as fast as I would be in Portuguese, so it's better to read it. Our mission is to deliver an independent intervention capacity and to be a platform for aggregating debate for the development of the information society. There's the connecting the dots in the APDSI logo. We connect the dots because we connect the several stakeholders. We are a platform to do that, to contribute to the formulation of public policies. That's our role in a legislative way. So we carry out project studies, technical opinions and issues that Parliament asks us, for example, in things like cybersecurity and others, to create spaces for debate and collaboration between its members, public partner institutions, and a network of experts. We are 7 members at the board, but we have an extended group of people working with us, investigators from academic field, from companies, we have a very large number of consultants, and that make us able to approach several things about information society. This is one of them. To facilitate the new approaches to current and future challenges, we actually have a work group that acts on scenarios. It's futures. The name of the group is futures. So it's really to make a future scenario and work about it. What would happen if? So we do it a lot in artificial intelligence nowadays, but cybersecurity is obviously one of the points in the agenda. And to promote the inclusion of citizens, small business, and the third sector. The digital third sector is one of our main goals also. And the stakeholders. Okay. So stakeholders are very large. We have we really act in several fields. And we hope that we can interligate all of them, startups and entrepreneurs, public institutions, large companies, obviously, they are the platinum sponsors of APDSI. NGOs, small and medium business, academy, obviously, and citizens. This is our stakeholders. And what do? We develop projects, studies, technical statements in a regular daily basis, almost, by our own initiative or in response of any request that we have from our associates or from the Parliament or other institutions. We facilitate the new approaches to current and future challenges to the information society. We promote the identification and the prioritization, because there is a problem of prioritization now, and ideations, especially on academy, and prototyping of new solutions. We do a lot of ideation meetings with young people and students to think about problems and how to solve it. The recognition of initiatives, good practices, and relevant personalities. This year we'll have 2 awards. One for journalism in information society, and the other one for digital transformation. And it's going to happen in May and October, I think. And events of diverse nature. We have now a new format of a kind of meetup. We call it meetup. It's breakfast or namus at the sunset. So it's little conferences. That when we talk about some issue that associate or some company propose to us, and then we debate it, and then we always give various perspectives on the team. So the idea is to make some discussion about scenarios. Again, and the meetups are really good for this, and they don't take us a very long time. It's early in the morning or in the afternoon. Conference, dinner debates, and GPRD. We made a dinner debate, and we are going to have the 2nd edition this year. This is our mission groups. Okay. We have mission groups already in full activity, and we have ongoing or in creation groups. They are mission groups, not work groups, because they are constituted to a mission right now. When the mission ends, the group ends, and then because that's the reason there are so many names there, because it's projects. They are kind of project groups. So here we have security and privacy. That's an ongoing group that never ends, actually. Futures is another one, and then we have GDPR. I'm underlining the ones that are related with this roundtable. So GDPR, health and security, and cybersecurity itself. So blockchain. If you go there, we all of them have to do with information society, and information society is always connected with cybersecurity. So, but actually related, we have these 4 or 5 groups, and we are always able to have more. So if you have any ideas and you want to explore it in a group, you can create a group and propose to us, or you can actually see an integrated group that already exists. So about cybersecurity and our activity in this field, we are integrated in GEX. That's a follow-up group for cybersecurity in health from the SPMS, the Shared Services of Ministry of Health. And following this partnership, APDSI is in charge of one axis of the agenda, that is prevention, education, and awareness, users, health professionals, and ICT professionals. Cybersecurity and health are one of our bigger concerns at the moment. In this dimension, obviously citizens are in this dimension, but the companies and the way data, the personal data of each one of us is used, and the personal health data is very important. So it's the possibility of how we can do with that versus the risks of using it. So it's one of the things that we actually discuss a lot. Then, in the scope of the APDSI security intervention, with the mission group of privacy and security and GDPR, we have a full agenda for this year, a 2nd edition of the dinner debate that I told you, where we make a state of the art about the implementation of GDPR in Portugal. the obstacles, the needs, the challenges in the relevant cases in private sector, especially, and in public sector. Private sector is very ahead in this because it's mandatory for them right now, and for the public sector, as you know, it's not mandatory, and that's a problem. It should be at the same time, but it's not. We have an workshop in security and privacy also. We are going to have a presentation of a study of GDPR's maturity model. They are much maturity models. We actually have this online already. The group of security and privacy already made some models already typed and type the organization according to the level of maturity of their models of cybersecurity, Portuguese organization. So you can see that on APDSI website, and there's a link to the PDF with a presentation, a little presentation of this study that will be published this year. And then we have e-privacy, Trocada Commute, that is in collaboration with ISOC. It's a campaign, an online privacy and safety campaign to raise awareness among children, preteens, young adults about trust and security online. This is our agenda for these groups, and we have also a protocol with National Cybersecurity Centro, and in this contest we created this Citizen Cibersegurança, which is cybersecurity citizen. There is a certification that all of you can do to see if you are or not a cybersecurity citizen, and it's a 15-hour course, and it's to give you all set of tools to use the cyberspace and feel able to be safe to navigate. And here we explore the use of the hardware also in a secure way. So companies also have to gain with this. Organizations also have to gain with this approach. And the course is in 3 models, includes 3 models, and the models are home, are very proximal with this roundtable. It's own, job, and outside, so it's everyday life. And in 4 topics: identity, networks and navigation, social behavior, and workstation, domestic station passport. So at the end of this course, everyone should be able to feel a cybersecurity citizen, and they have a quiz to really feel if they are or not. We invite everyone to know more about this course and to test if they are a citizen, cybersecurity citizen or not. I guess I should have the test also because it may be include sharing or something like that. And all the other APDSI activities in the website. Feel free to join us in our mission. We are several, but we are always less than we should be. So just the last slide. This is a congressman from the Democratic Party in the United States, and he says, people ask me all the time, what keeps you up at night? And I say, spicy Mexican food, weapons of mass destruction, and cyber attacks. So I think this can give us time for reflection afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. And then ask Paulo to actually present or speak a little bit about also his participation in RAN, the Radicalization Awareness Network.
Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for the invitation. And I will briefly discuss what is RUN and what you do at RUN. RUN exists inside the European Commission and more specifically in the DG for Migration and Home Affairs. And this DG hosts several networks, and this is the network that is looking for the radicalization movements and risks in today's society. Okay, this works. I hope. No, still not working.
Is it on?
No, it's off. No.
It helps to be on.
Yeah, it helps a lot. It helps a lot to be on. So this was actually very secure because it was out.
Nobody could bother with
And nobody should hear what I'm going to say. Okay, so what is RUN? So like I've said, it's a network of professionals that work with people that were already radicalized or that are at risk of radicalization. And this involves quite a broad spectrum of practitioners. It goes from police forces, of course, to civil society organizations, local power, local state, etc., etc. And what happens is that this network is organized in working groups because of the nature of radicalization is very different, and there are different perspectives to look at it. And one of the ways that RUN works is inside working groups, and these working groups range from specific perspectives like education, to local authorities, to prison and probation, to police and law enforcement, but then you have like communication and narratives, or youth, families and communities, or health and social care, that are so, or very specifically the members of victims of terrorism, for instance. So different objectives, different expertise groups, and what these groups do mainly is exchange practices, discuss about what problems may lie ahead, and produce papers. A lot of papers, a lot of knowledge in these different fields, in these looking at radicalization from these different perspectives. And what you get is issue papers, or policy papers, or even more robust resources like guidelines or even guides on these topics. Myself, I'm involved with the communication and narratives group, which is a very interesting group because inside of that you can find a lot of projects about the building campaigns against radicalization or to prevent radicalization or to have alternative discourse campaigns, stuff like that. And also, it's inside this group that is connected with the Center for Excellence that lives inside also RUN and that produces stuff like this. Like I said, the first one, actually, I was proud to be involved, is about monitoring and evaluating counter and alternative narrative campaigns. And this is connected with the second one, actually, because that Gamma Plus model is the model that is being promoted to building online campaigns to prevent and combat radicalization. I'm more involved with the plus sign. The plus is evaluation, so it's I'm not an expert in communication and building online campaigns. Yeah, maybe, maybe someday. But so this is the kind of work that a lot of groups do, and after you produce these papers, these are disseminated. These are all free. They are all online. They are all available. You can look for all these documents You can look inside each of the groups and find specific papers related to the work of those working groups. And then you have more robust documents like these two that I've got here, like far-right extremism, a practical introduction, or the other one about mental health, and an handbook for practitioners, which is rather interesting. Just to tell you that there are quite a few Portuguese projects at this moment inside RUN. In a couple of months, maybe, you will see online a campaign. If you look for the hashtag This Is My Story, which is actually going to be a very big campaign with an alternative narrative that's going to be online. And another thing that I would like to tell you about is this civil society empowerment program, because this is the program that has several calls, and inside of which you live all these projects. So the projects, the specific projects like the online campaigns and stuff like that, are financed by this program, CSAP, and RUN supports CSAP. So it's like you produce the narratives, the communication and narratives group work alongside CSAP to give tools to people from civil society organizations that want to promote campaigns, online campaigns. So there are different calls, and most of the projects are online and offline campaigns against radicalization and hate violent speech. And for this, you have these specific papers like this one, the 9 essentials to consider while engaging in online PCV campaigning, which is rather interesting, or this one, that are produced inside the Center of Excellence of RUN to support people that want to make applications for this program. So this is more or less the things that I wanted to tell you about RUN. It's a network. It's about bringing people together, discussing these very hot topics these days, and trying to get solutions together by exchanging good practices and having peer reviews of the experiences that we are having. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's on.
Thank you. It's on. Now Pedro Mendoza, who is a consultant at the Centro Nacional Cibersegurança, National Center for Cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. It's an honor in the name of the Portuguese National Cybersecurity Center. I will talk a little bit about the center, but mainly about the importance of the human factor in cybersecurity and what kind of things we are doing in relation to that, and some problems we can find in Portugal in terms of cybersecurity awareness and issues around that. Well,
Segurança.
I don't know what to the Portuguese National Cybersecurity Center was created in 2014. It's a public institution, and the aim of this institution is to promote the cyberspace usage in a free, trustable, and secure fashion, reading the mission of our center. And we have 4 main areas of action: training and awareness, public policy, national international cooperation, and also we have the CERT PT or a CCERT, which is a center that has a lot of engineers that try to respond to cybersecurity incidents in Portuguese national cyberspace or national cyberspace of interest, you may say. And we have a connection with many other organizations, public, private organizations that are important for essential services of society, you may say. Well, in terms of the human factor, I would like to highlight these three humans, you may say, three roles of humans. I would like to stress that when you think about cybersecurity, we are not thinking just about technology. Of course, technology is very important in technical skills, but we are also talking about the human factor. Sometimes people say that the human factor is the weakest factor, the weakest link. I think we should think as the most important one, because of course cybersecurity, cyberspace, it's for humans. So if we don't care about humans, they don't. Cyberspace is not an important thing by itself. And we live in a technological network that is made of humans and non-humans. That's how I think we should look at the system. In terms of the user, the developer, and the decision maker, I think there are three actors that must be aware of cybersecurity. And I think the key word for these three different actors is responsibility. We all must feel responsible for cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not something just of engineers, of developers. It's something that everybody should be worried about, because everybody is responsible for cybersecurity, because one little mistake, clicking in a link, phishing email, something like that, can jeopardize all system with a lot of technology. It's not enough. In terms of the user, I think one of the main dangers is the confusion between the benevolence of technology and its usefulness. Because technology is useful doesn't mean that it's good by itself. And we can think about non-intended consequences on technology. We can think about bad uses of technology. But technology, it's not neutral. I think each technology brings new realities, new problems by itself. For instance, the ability to collect a lot of data, it's something that it's part of information and communication technologies, so we have to deal with that. It's not just in the hands of the user, even though the user has a lot of responsibility. And sometimes the user has some naivety in relation to technology. For instance, sharing his kids' images on the internet. If we have the knowledge or the conscience that there are a lot of archives of big data, you may say, of children's images online for whatever. Yes. So if we had that conscience, of course we would act differently. So we have some naivety. And that naivety comes also from the commercial aspect of it, because the companies that try to sell those products, selling something that it's easy to use, that it's good. So we don't think about the bad sides of technology. And I don't want to have demonized the vision of technology. We are trying to save technology in a way. That's the point, I think. In terms of the developers, so we have to deal with these conditions when we think about the user. In terms of the developer, I think we should stress something that's very important, and in cybersecurity it's very well known. It's the idea of developing products secure by design and by default. That is, technology that already has all the security devices that it could have. For instance, antivirus in smartphones and things like that. Sometimes technology is not developed with that in mind, because the developers, they have to create a business, they have to sell a product, so they just think about the usefulness of the product. They don't think how that product could be safer and secure. And so we must think about these security problems, dealing with the cause of those problems and not just the symptoms of those problems. And that's a technological but also an economical thing. Okay? We have to balance the comfort, the usefulness of technology, and the effort security implies. Think about the two factors authentication process as well. We want devices that are easy to use, they are fast, but if we have to make two actions in order to make an authentication, well, that's the other way around. So we have to counter intuitively that movement. But it's not easy to balance user-friendly features with secure features. And at the decision maker level, it's very important. We have to create awareness at this level, because without that, organizations will not be worried about cybersecurity. If the pressure in organizations is just for profit and for efficiency, well, cybersecurity is not an issue, unless something very bad happens. And something very bad can happen. Another issue I would like to address is one thing that I think it's a very big problem, one of the main problems in cybersecurity. This is a part of document from European Court of Auditors, and I'm going to read. In cybersecurity, we assist to a growing asymmetry between the know-how needed to commit cybercrime or launch a cyber attack and the skills needed to defend against it. The crime as a service model has lowered the barriers of entry to the cybercriminal market. Individuals without technical knowledge to build them can now rent botnets, exploit kits, or ransomware packages. So that idea, like the idea we see when we watch Ruipinto in media, that every hacker is a genius, and you need a lot of skills in order to make a cyber attack. That's not completely true, even though in some cases might be true. Everybody, and I say really everybody, if that person wants to, can buy cyber attack products online. Darknet, well, on YouTube, you can. I'm not suggesting something, but it's very easy to that. So with not much money, you can buy DDoS attacks, for instance, in order to attack a website. Spyware, if you want to spy your wife, your husband, your children, whatever. Don't do that at home. So this asymmetry is really a problem. So we must invest in knowledge, in awareness, and the ability of people to deal with this. This same report from European Court of Auditors stresses 5 professions that really need this awareness: civil servants, law enforcement officers, judicial authorities, armed forces, and educators. So not just the common user. These key actors, they are very important in terms of cybersecurity awareness. In Portuguese National Cybersecurity Centro, we try to address these 3 different actors, again, user, developer, and decision maker. We have a training program and an awareness program. We have the Cybersecure Citizen online course. We also, for developers and organizations and decision makers, we have a national cybersecurity framework reference and a roadmap in order to create the minimum capacities in each organization. So this is organization's problem also. And before finishing my short presentation, I'd like to show you, for instance, this example of how Portuguese people are in relation to European countries in terms of passwords used. What kind of things we do in order to protect our passwords, considering that passwords are a very important problem in cybersecurity, because it's a way to assess different platforms and private platforms. This is from the European Special Eurobarometer for Internet Security. I think it's not easy to see, but well, in the left side of the board, you can see that even those people that say they are worried about cybersecurity, what they did after that, in Portugal, we have less than in the rest of the European Union changing their password or frequently or using a different password for different platforms. And it's very important to use different passwords for different platforms, because if your password is compromised in one platform, if you have the same for others, well, you know what will happen. And you have to have complex passwords, of course, and change in a frequent way. In the right side of the board, you can see that most of Portuguese people, they don't even change their password for any of these different platforms. And it's, well, the numbers are worse in Portugal than in the rest of the European Union. Just my final thoughts. Cybersecurity is not just a technical, criminal, or political problem, right? Even though it is. Because of the pervasive use of cyberspace, this is a social problem that faces widespread social engineering techniques. So we are not just dealing with technical things, we are dealing with manipulation, of course. And disinformation is a part of this, even though it has something to do with content and media. General awareness must be combined with workforce education and training, and we need a whole of government and all of society approach. That is, we must involve everybody. Most of critical infrastructures in the country, transport, health system, and public administration, they all depend on digital transformation. But this digital transformation has some non-intended consequences now that we can clearly see. So we must all get involved on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. Vítor?
First of all, thank you all. Thank you for the organization for having me here. I don't have anything to show, and basically it's because most of my days I pass looking at virus. So you all will find that extremely boring. So there's no presentation. However, I want to share with you my vision about cybersecurity and family and organizations. And I want all of you to imagine that you are going into a room. And on that room, there's a table. On that table, there's a box. What is your first thought? You open the box.
What's inside the box?
Exactly. So that is the one of the problems, not the fundamental problem, one of the problems with cybersecurity. People cannot resist the urge to click or to open things. And that is the truth, okay? So when we think about this, and I've seen a lot of friends losing their family photos. I've seen companies losing millions and millions and stopping business all over the world. And this sometimes can happen because people need to open boxes. So I'm not saying that the problem is with people, although for a long time a lot of my colleagues researchers would say, yeah, users are the problems. Well, in a point they are, and I can lose the amount of times I've suggested companies train your people, security awareness, train your people. Yeah, but if you do it only in companies, that will not solve the problem. So my wife always tells me, we need media literacy. We need media literacy. And well, I think we need cyber literacy. We need that. But we cannot say that we need that, and then at the same time, we don't go to school and teach our kids. Our secondary programs, they don't have a single, even a slight text in their program about security. I've done it in my kids' school because I volunteered to go into the what's it called? Citizenship. Mm-hmm. And I've done it a couple of times. But then at the same time, we don't have that. At the same time, we keep approving computer science degrees without a cybersecurity course. So we cannot say that we need it, and at the same time, we're approving computer science degrees. So the developers that are going to do all the technology that we're going to use, there are in Portugal computer science courses that don't have a cybersecurity course on it, and we keep approving them. So there's something here that really doesn't match up, right? So this is something that we really need to address. And this is the visible part of cybersecurity, what we all feel and what we all see in the news. And then, for me, there's the hidden part of cybersecurity when it relates with families. We all acknowledge that in Portugal, at least, we live in a society with problems of domestic violence. We all agree on that. And we all agree that we are more dependent and more dependent on cyber and on internet for our daily lives. So the same tools that the police is using, the same tools that secret services are using, the same tools that companies are using to control their employees are being used by abusive relationships to create a virtual prison for the victims. And now we all know, this is all over the debates where a lot of people, the spouses cannot leave home, they are heavily controlled. But in 5 years' time, in 2 years' time, maybe no, already now in Portugal, we can assist in a virtual prison where people can leave, but they are extremely controlled on their phones. And this can cost 60 euros a month. And it's legal. When you buy it, it's legal because the company sells it in a way that they say, well, what you do with it is your problem. So you need to make sure that you don't use it for illegal purposes. And we sell it, it's a service. And oh, by the way, if you don't know how to install it, we can help you on a video share. Oh, and by the way, if that's not good enough for you, we can sell you a phone already installed. Oh, of course, in that case, it's not 6 euros.
What is this?
I'm lost.
This is a spy tool that completely controls your phone. It tells where you are, what you see, what you read, where you work. It can redirect calls, it can take photos, it can do whatever you think. What you can do with the phone, they will do it. With it for 60 years. So what I'm trying to say is that this is the hidden side of cybersecurity when it comes to families. That we need to address because we talk about this a lot in our society. We know that this is a problem, but it will change a little bit, and the pressure and the way to control and the way that it will change because there is more and more dependency on the phones. So that's why I've dedicated a lot of time into security chats and that kind of stuff. And this is what I see. This is how I see cybersecurity. So that's what I wanted to share with you, because if I would share assembly or things like that, you would find it boring. So.
Thank you. I had, first of all, thank you all. I had millions of questions, as you can imagine. And those that know me can imagine. But before asking the questions that I have, I just wanted to open up because otherwise we might run out of time. But if there's no question, there is always a question. Thank you. Continue.
Do you want to collect? Okay, so I have basically two questions and a small anecdote to share. My first question will be directly to Pedro, but anyone can take it. It's actually how to ensure you talk a lot about the human factor, yeah, and how we should actually be responsible for what we are doing. So how to ensure the responsibility of users in cybersecurity if we cannot make the users responsible, hold the responsibility for what they say or what they share. We have been talking about this in the previous panels, the difficulty, so how ideas, how to ensure that. And then the other goes more in the direction of what Cristina Ponte presented, and now I say that as a mother, not as an academic person, but you talked that it was a quantitative research, right? And the children said that they felt safe, they were secure. What does it mean? And then my question is more towards, have we actually asked children what is safe? What do they understand? What is secure? Do they know the risk of it? If you're talking about cyber security, do they know the risk of it? And what I would like to share is that I was walking with my daughter, and it came water from the floor, going downstairs. And she said, "Oh my God, it's not raining, it's water." She said, yeah, ask Google. Where is this water coming from? I said, what? Yeah, ask Google, Mom. You always ask Google. And I'm like, yeah, but Google doesn't know where the water is coming from. So this is one thing. She trusts this a lot. Yesterday, we were having dinner, and we have the Google Home thing. We were having a conversation, and suddenly Google started talking. And we look at, what? And then my husband asked, Google, are you listening to us? And Google replied with that very nice and mechanic voice that it never listens to us. It's not listening to us when we do not allow it. I am a device programmed to talk to you when you activate me by saying, okay, Google. And we were like, what? We didn't say, okay, Google. And my daughter asked, she's 6 years old, and she asked, is Google spying on us? And then we said, no. But then we looked at each other and said, yeah, maybe. Is it spying on us? She trusts this. She says, Google, I love you. She asks Google, please. So how can you talk to a child about feeling safe to an artificial intelligence if we do not teach them? Because we don't know what artificial intelligence is. Yes.
I'm going to ask for one more question or two before, otherwise I can actually pose my question because I didn't want to lose this one. We are talking a lot about focus on cyber risk prevention, but I wanted to divert this to more of a training on resilience because I think it's different. I mean, we are going definitely to be attacked. There's no way around it. So it's not preventing things from happening, it's actually being more resilient against the attacks so that the attacks cost us less and everything else. So what are the drivers for building that resilience? And it goes a little bit what Catarina was saying. And what does that mean for individuals, families, and organizations so that I can open up actually to the rest of the panel? And so I don't know if maybe Pedro and Cristina can start and then the rest can join in. Pedro, you have the microphone.
Thank you for your question. Well, in terms of responsibility, I think in order to have responsibility, people must understand the consequences or the possible consequences of their actions. And I think that link might help to bring responsibility, the ability to answer responsibility, to respond in terms of their actions. But I think fear might be important at some point, but not too much fear, because too much fear paralyzes. And people think, well, I cannot do nothing, I cannot do anything about it. Even though your example is a radical example of it's like a big brother, so it's really clear. Some things are not that clear. And I think one important thing that a research communicated, I would say it, exposed by European Cybersecurity Agency. Disseminated, well. Não sei se está aqui alguém em inglês. Okay, a report from there is a cybersecurity agency, European Cybersecurity Agency. It's very interesting because they show that the most important thing to do is to show people what they should do and how their actions have good results on their security. That's the best way to show that it's efficient. If you change your password, if you make backups, if you don't share some private information on social media, wherever. So I think that might be the path to that. I think so. Knowing the possible consequences, a little fear, not too much, and what to do, how to do it. But it's not easy in terms of, for instance, awareness programs to show, for instance, good results. You have to think about the future. It's not easy.
Thank you for your question, Cristina. It was very interesting to listen to all the presentations. I learned a lot because I was not aware of the work that you are doing so well. And answer to your question, we asked a survey of around almost 100 questions. And we made cognitive testing, so we prepared the survey, but we wanted to have a pattern of how European children answer to the same questions. So, as a quantitative survey, it's very limited. It provides this pattern, and this pattern makes us think about the issues that emerge. It's the reason why I said it's important to combine these quantitative results with listening to children. The question, so we had questions about access, where do you access, what kind of device do you use, questions related with activities, related with skills, related with risks, and we had a section related with digital ecology. Well, it was not this name, but in this section we asked children's perception of the online environment. Specifically, we were interested in whether or not children feel safe online, and if they don't feel safe, if they have people that they could trust for these situations. And there was a scale in the question from never to always. And when we analyzed the results, we identified that the safe feeling was reported by 17 to 51%. So let's say half of them don't express this safe feeling. In Portugal, as I said, we had 40% of children that say they feel safe. So we had 60% that express kind of, let's say, some criticism about their safety. So, as I said, it's very interesting to see these results in a comparative perspective. But of course, some of these results suggest much more questions. For instance, and I was thinking about this when Paulo presented the project of RAN, Radicalization Awareness. We know how difficult it is for adults to identify if the information is true or not, if it is manipulated or not. So we know that it was interesting and very relevant when you said that the Portuguese curriculum of ICT ignores issues related with cybersecurity, and I wonder other issues that are also unexplored. It should be much more explored than they are. And critical thinking and informational skills are a problem that deserves lots of work. Because, as you said, children tend to trust in Google, and they tend to trust in what is more visible online. So it's very difficult, and we know as adults that it's not easy to identify if some information, some kind of information are true or not. So imagine a child. So we have to do much more work and promoting capacities, critical thinking, and to resist a guy, and this is related with Carla said about resilience. We live in a world, in a digital ecology, where we are asked to be always on, always not out, always on, always available, always presenting new information, new data, and this is based on a certain business model, and we also have to work with young people about this digital. What is the digital? Sometimes the digital appears like something transparent, natural, and it's not transparent, neither transparent nor natural. So we have to be aware of these difficulties that this environment places for the younger generation as well for all of us, so I would say.
So I think that we need to be aware of one really important thing. We are exploring new space. So most of us are in the generation where internet started, Google started. So, and social media was more or less starting, right? So we are the first ones. We don't know how to act, but we are learning. Our kids are the second wave. So we have the obligation to teach them better. We don't know and we have an excuse not to know, but we don't have the excuse not to teach our children. And that's what is happening today, because we ourselves don't know how to deal with it. We are in that space where we are lacking the tools to teach our children. But the reality is that we can do it, and we should do it, and we should do it more. And this also goes with the resilience question. So if you think of it, we are the sole responsibles for what we publish online. In 10 years' time, we are responsible for what we are publishing for our kids, and it's their future. So we need to think about this. And resiliency is all about recovery. And we all know technically how to recover. Well, we should know how to recover pictures. We should know how to recover from some ransomware or something really technical. But do we know how to help our children to recover from a picture that they don't want to be published and it may be published? Well, I'm saying this. I have 4 kids, and I've never published a single picture of the faces of my kids in the name of my wife. We can post pictures, the bags with the face covered, something like that. So it's about that. It's about thinking that we are responsible for ourselves, but we need to teach our children that we may be compromising their future. And resiliency is about recovery. It's all about that. We will be attacked in some way, and we need to recover. And we need to give them the tools for that. We need to give them the tools to recover and to know the risks. I would just want to give you a really short example. We all know about Cambridge Analytica, right? What if I tell you that there is a second Cambridge Analytica being built in Australia based on internet scraping? So you don't need to give consent, you don't need to publish your pictures on Facebook. They are pretty much looking on YouTube videos, on any photograph on the internet, and they will do facial recognition and build a profile out of that. So they don't need to make an agreement with Cambridge Analytica, with Facebook or whatever, and we can regulate whatever we want on social media. We need to be aware that they build it on top of what we publish ourselves. And if we do that for us, and if we do that for our children, we are limiting their capabilities of recovery. So, and we have been all day talking about all kinds of fake news and all kinds of regulations, but we need to think that there are things that it's on ourselves for us and for our kids, and that's not regulatable. We cannot regulate that.
Thank you. Sophia, do you want to add something? Just very briefly.
Yes, very briefly. Just about human factor. I maybe I'm not optimistic about this, but I think human factor could actually be an opportunity, because I don't think if you worried about nudging, behavioral economics, and nudging. It's my PhD, so my thesis is about nudging in political science. So I think we have a gap here in government and in decision makers, in policy making about the human factor. And the nudging says that we can build some choice architecture so the citizens can have a path to pursue that is more benefits, that gives them benefits. It's nudging. There's something about ethics and transparency and other things that we are going. If you have to talk about it, it will be another day. But yes, or weeks maybe. But I think the human factor can be controlled, and actually can be. We can use it to educate. So it's a good thing that we are talking about human factor, because it's not machines. So we can actually learn things. People learn things. and it's not just programming. So it's a good thing that we can actually take this as an advantage. So it's that.
Just to finish?
Yeah, just to finish. Because I was very interested in your points about cyber literacy. Because what we see, for instance, in the work that is being done by RUN is that radicalization strategies really fed from the ingenuity of people online, and they target potential people to radicalize, and they are very professional about it, most of them. And this interface that people sometimes don't understand, that these online actions have very real life consequences, and you are seeing that about, for instance, freedom fighters and the stuff, that a single action, like for instance leaving home and go to Syria, fight for whatever cause, was triggered by a very small action online. And nowadays the new risks that are coming, like everybody talks about far right, and I just presented something, but for instance now what we are discussing is the far left movement, so, and also the eco terrorists and stuff like that, because it's a growing movement, and one that is going to be harder to control, because most of the times it's being done by lonely individuals and not by organized groups, and so it's much more difficult to control. It's just that this cyber literacy, I think it's really important.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have a lot of food for thought, but we have to actually finish. I think it will be a week long conversation if you see it here. Thank you to all participants, and join me in thanking and applauding.